Well, I'm joined here on set by civil rights attorney Joe Richardson. Joe, it's good to see you.
And now joining us is Joe Richardson.
Joe Richardson.
This is Joseph Richardson. His firm is representing Paige Griffin. Good morning to you, Joseph.
Now, Joe, you know where I'm going because I know we're about to sign you off. We have about 90 seconds. When we getting a verdict, Joe? What do you think?
Listen, I've got bills to pay. If I knew that, I would have it, sell it. As it pertains to this case, there have been a lot of bumps in the road because of the defendant representing himself. It's very much an inexact science. The practice of law is not called the science of law because it's not exact even when people that are experienced are doing it. She wanted to do, and if it was about information, she wouldn't have cut her off on the last question. She knew, do what you need to do, cut her off at the head because they don't like her, turn around, walk away, mic drop, that's it. But she wasn't believable in the first place, and that's what made everything else possible. Pathological enough to actually risk her own career to destroy his. That is a big step. It's a really tall order, and they've got a lot of believability to accomplish for the jury to really get there. And you say, oh, okay, that makes sense. You know, it will never make sense. I compare a default to the way that I explain default to clients is that when it's like having a dance and one person shows up, and if the other person doesn't show up, you're actually dancing by yourself. And because he was defaulted and did not participate in the litigation the way he needed to, you can be in the litigation, not do the things that you're supposed to, and the ultimate sanction is basically taking away your dance card so that the other person is there alone. And now it's just a matter of how much. Not that he's not liable, and he was never criminally guilty. He was civilly liable, which is a difference. And at the end of the day, this defense attorney was hoping for the old Georgia. They pressed those buttons. They got rid of most of the black people that were in the panel. And they were hoping that that would end up being the difference in this case. But as it turned out, it wasn't. They tried to make him into a villain, Mr. Arbery into a villain, which he was not. They tried to make him into a criminal, which he was not. The criminals were the ones that were being tried and they were convicted. And fortunately for all of us, the jury saw a difference between themselves and those that were being prosecuted. And that's why they were convicted. And I hope that this defense attorney remembers this moment and is not allowed to forget it for the rest of their lives, because some of us cannot make those mistakes and survive them. It is absolutely inexcusable. It's morally wrong. And thank God the jury came out that it was legally wrong.
Here's what we know. What we know is our client would not be, she'd be at work today, and she'd rather be at work today than in this press conference that we have a bit later.
It is a powerful argument, and it's also powerful to say, they acknowledge he's got some dark texts and some things that people perhaps shouldn't say, but no admission of being an abuser. Meanwhile, she took on the role of a lifetime, positioned herself as a victim of domestic violence, and we have on tape that she is physically abusive, verbally abusive, and she acknowledges it. One thing that may make you forget your training is having a fear of the suspect. And there is a very real fear of black men as it pertains to policing. I am not talking about her intentions. I don't believe she's Derek Chauvin. I don't believe she's Kyle Rittenhouse. I think she was very sincere. But that is a real thing, and that is something that can make you forget your training. Does it make it into the box and the well of trying the case? Because the law is the law? No, not necessarily. But it is kind of amazing that she would forget as much as she did, and particularly make a mistake that no training officer would make, and that for that matter, she never made in her life. I think it's good in that they want to show Johnny Depp to be, vulnerable, regular, normal, hopefully believable and likable, right? They also have him, taking the knife, as it were, admitting some of the issues on direct so that they don't come out on cross, so that if they like him and he's credible, then they can look past those things and hopefully believe him at the matter at hand. And there's an argument that an eye for an eye leaves everybody blind. I'm not a big death penalty guy. Now, if you were a death penalty person, and that jury could render the death penalty. So they heard the evidence and said, 3 of them, and said, no death penalty. You have to respect that even when you don't like it. And I'm just really sad for the family because they'll never find the closure that they're looking for, but also because their closure depended on him dying like their family members died.
They should not be humiliated just because they're black. They should not have their civil rights trampled on just because we're black. And yes, we believe that that is what happened.
Can be, right? I mean, it all kind of comes back to believability. To Johnny Depp's side, if Amber Heard is really a certain way, she would be a certain way. She would be threatening to her own mother, where her mother actually feared for her. She would treat her sister like an evil stepsister, you know, out of Cinderella. If she would do those things, then Johnny Depp, as a human being, could be frustrated and could say things that he wouldn't otherwise say, right? And so that keeps him hanging in there.
Part of me considers a victory because there will be a tomorrow for him. I wonder if there'll be some kind of appeal based on them not coming out a certain way on the underlying, because it was a little confusing. We were talking about that. But it's a difficult case, and it reminds us of the larger societal background. Perhaps under some circumstances, this case would not have been brought at all.
That's a little bit of insight as to where you would like it to end. Of course, we want justice for the family, but a lot of times the people that watch us don't see where we want it to go, how we want to deal with something systemic. So what's our wish list about how we want this to end?
Two things need to go away. One is Trump. Second is Trumpism. If Trump runs again, and I kind of hope he does because he's the best motivator, once he loses, then we'll all know that it's over. However, the danger is somebody that can take Trumpism but actually does the work, is not lazy, and knows how to exercise the bumps of power.
Yeah, that's a
that's the problem. So Trump will go soon enough, maybe because of crime, or maybe for some other reason, maybe because he loses at the ballot, but then we're dealing with Trumpism. But if we go state by state, do the diagnosis, an honest diagnosis, listen to people that know, starting with Black women, we can do what we need to do long term.
Long time, I think the thing that is good, I don't know if they're going to get it done in 48 hours, but the thing that is good is that there does seem to be bipartisan support this time around, and perhaps maybe there's a backdoor opportunity for this to get done in a Congress that's not so Republican on the House side, where moderates that are Democrats and Republicans could actually work together on something that has a bipartisan basis of support. I don't know if the prosecutors know to do this, but being an R&B music guy, they could go to the words of his songs and the words of the records that he's produced. Aaliyah's album was called Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. Bump and Grind says, show me some ID before I get knee deep. He's got another song on his second album called It Seems Like You're Ready to Go All the Way. So there's a lot of things that they can add in there, but the defense has got to find a way to play this gray area that, frankly, he's been able to use to elude capture, as it were, for about 25 years now. Let justice roll down like a river. You know, if there was this hypocrisy and this selective memory and this self-righteousness, frankly, despite the effort, some may call it effort, this is the reasons non-Christians won't become Christians.
Got it.
And I'm a Christian saying it. And so, really, Martin was called a militant. Ask him, let's ask Pastor how he felt about Martin when he died. He's old enough to be around. Was he actually reciting the words from I Have a Dream back in 1963? I bet you he wasn't. Does he have a picture of Jesus that is historically accurate visually today? Probably not. An exception when we do right, we already have that problem where we do well and we're more miraculous than indicative. We're more of an exception than a rule. It doesn't make people say there's more like him. It makes them say he's not like the others.
This is who they are, Joe.
I have this habit that I'll admit. Anytime I'm getting ready to take off my shirt, because I've got my glasses on, I naturally take them off, okay? So what happens is, even if seconds before I took off my glasses, seconds before I took off my shirt, for some other reason, right? The glasses aren't on, but I still go like this, even though I did it seconds before. When you've done something and you've always done it and it's so natural, even in an audience where you know you'll be penalized for it, where you know you can't do it and you're not supposed to do it, and you're talking about people of color, so you know to train yourself, you don't do it. The Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so therefore, he talked about it like he used to talking about it, like he done it before, and like he'll do it again. And that's what you have in the United States of America. We're still here, out of here. I really appreciated how he came. He was very balanced, And he said, I listen to these folks, and everybody on this train says that you're being a certain way. And it is interesting how she crammed up. She wasn't as strong when he came after her like that. And did the eye thing and everything. I mean, it was fantastic. I appreciated him being an ally that way because it's about making people feel safe. Now, what is this person gonna do anyway? She's not in, why is her entitlement what it actually is? This just lets you know how folks think. And so I'm really glad that we had that advocate show up in that particular situation, and hopefully that kind of thing can happen more often.
Honored to be on with you, Dr. Barber. Appreciate you so greatly for so many reasons and for so many years. As we know, the North Carolina legislature is now a supermajority Republican. And even though people point to, as you said in an article recently, the woman who won for office as a Democrat and then she flipped to Republican to create that supermajority, you pointed back to some things before, including the approval of a gerrymander by Attorney General Eric Holder that you call the betrayal of representative democracy. Looking at where we are now and what it is that we need to accomplish, what this administration, it's his Justice Department, do to avoid similar betrayals? Brother Pearson, appreciate the work that you're doing, and even though your focus is local, we clearly have national implications. And this is a rallying cry, becoming a rallying cry, and has been for a long time for a lot of people. So how do you strike that balance between being a local representative, which you are, but also understanding that this is a moment where everyone is paying attention and where this is a national issue, and because of it, it's going to rally people nationally, and how can they help one another?